Guillermo, Emil Amok to you. Here we are on our regular Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. ish Pacific time. We do this show, Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. I talk about stuff, it's like old fashioned talk radio without the calls. I mean, come on, you have to admit it that sometimes the most annoying things about talk radio wasn't the host. I mean, the host is kind of annoying, but you only listen for the annoying host. You don't listen for the annoying phone calls. The phone calls were annoying because powerless people with nothing to say, talking to a person who may be slightly elevated by being a talk show host, but really, what does he know or she know, right? Except they have the show. So really, we don't have calls. I mean, you can put a chat in if you want, but it's not that interactive. Although interactive, that's a key word in the digital marketplace. People want, we want to hear, we want to hear your voice. Well, then they can chat. You can chat. We can ignore your comment if we want. But of course, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. Today, it's Friday. As I have been told, some people are celebrating the holiday today in advance of Veterans Day tomorrow. We'll talk about Veterans Day. Always means something special to Asian Americans, to Filipinos. We'll talk about Veterans Day. Talk about the news, of course. Don't call it a ceasefire. It's not a ceasefire. It's a pause. It's a pause that refreshes, I guess. It's a pause that allows people who should be free the ability to move without fear. Let's hope. So it's the best we can do. We need a ceasefire, but it's not a ceasefire. It's a pause. We'll talk about that a little later. And then we'll talk about the AALDEF poll, more about the AALDEF poll and abortion. Because I'm curious about how you feel about it. This is one of the few polls out there that for this 2023 election went out and found out what Asian Americans think. And, you can see what's going on with the big issues like abortion and, just name an issue, education, public safety, you name it. But where do Asian Americans stand? How do they feel? None of the polls ever has a significant amount of Asian Americans. So we don't know. We can't say, except the AALDEF poll. And we'll talk about the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. And we'll talk about its poll because it's telling. There's a news thing. I mean, if people are wondering that, Hispanics and blacks are kind of like checking out other folks now because they don't like Biden. How do Asian Americans feel? Now, I would just have to guess. I would have to guess how Asian Americans, I would think that they were probably pro-Biden. But I would be wrong. And I have data. And we will talk about the data with my good friend and usual Friday guest, Professor Theo Gonzalves, Professor Emeritus, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. He'll be up in a second. But before then, I want to plug a good friend of mine and a former student of the aforementioned Professor Theo Gonzalves. I'm talking about the man known as Professor Theo Gonzalves. Professor Theo Gonzalves. He is now a curator at the Smithsonian Institution at the Museum of Natural History. He's just put out a new book called Smithsonian Asian Pacific American 101 Objects. It's sort of like a play on words, right? To make it sound like, like a 101, like a college course. And it is kind of a one-on-one. It's your entree point to Asian Pacific American history, but he uses cultural, historical, and uh, art objects to sort of make points about where we are in Asian Pacific American history. It really is a fascinating book. I've gone through it. It's a kind of book that you can start anywhere and pick an object and then find the historical significance of that object, which I think is kind of cool. And when I first met Theo Gonzalves, Dr. Gonzalves, back in 2005, it was in Honolulu, where he was teaching at the University of Hawaii, and he said, "Oh, Emil Guillermo, you are friends with Professor Dan Gonzalez," and that's why Theo's a special guy, a special intellect, and like I said, good friend, and I guess he was a good student. Was he, Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez, who joins us now? Was Theo a good student?
Oh my! Oh yeah, I'm up. Actually, he was an excellent student, and more than that, he was my graduate teaching assistant
Oh
while
well,
he was doing his master's in
yeah,
political science. And then he went on to the doctoral program at UC Santa Barbara. Yeah,
yeah, and he's a Fulbright scholar. The guy's
yeah. Did
wow,
Spain? Did the Philippines?
yeah,
Like he likes all the same places that Linda and I love in northern Spain. We talk about the food all the time.
yeah. Well, anyway, Theo's got this new book, Smithsonian Asian Pacific American 101 Objects of Art, History, Culture. And if you listen, you get the book, but if I will play a special Emil Amok's Takeout, my interview with Theo, all throughout the weekend. If you go to our sites, maybe like the YouTube site, I think you might find the issue on there, but I'll put it out live on Saturday and Sunday. He has a special thing about Veterans Day because some of the objects are one of the objects, the patch from the Filipino American, the First Infantry, is included as one of the special uh, objects. Do you know about that patch, right? Right, Dan?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a volcano,
I
and
had it on when we went to the parade last Saturday
in San Francisco, right?
in San Francisco. Yeah,
Yeah, and
they moved the parade because of APEC.
coming up this week.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and one of the things about the patch I didn't realize is that it was a volcano with
yeah,
3 stars,
yeah.
and
Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, the three regions of the Philippines.
the significance of that really is, as Theo points out, and this is his scholarly curiosity, and this is why he could talk about all these interdisciplines, art, culture, history. He
Oh,
says,
he's very much so. He's
yeah,
very broad.
and he says, why or how can Filipinos not think about who are they fighting for? Are they fighting not? Are they fighting just to prove their patriotism to the United States because they were barred from fighting before they made a special exception for Filipinos, or are they fighting to free and liberate the Philippines? And that volcano really is a Philippine volcano.
Yeah, it's both. It's Mount Mayon. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But Mount Mayon is not Mount Shasta. It's not the Altamont Pass. It's it's in the Philippines. They're fighting in the Philippines, and they were, for the most part. Some of them were in the Philippines, not all, but some. Well, the First Infantry,
First and second.
first and second. Yeah. So anyway, that patch is one of the objects, and like I said, it's a. I really enjoyed Theo's book. You should get it. Smithsonian's Asian Pacific American 101. The editor writer Theo Gonzalves, and it's available now. Published this week. I do an interview with him this week. So we'll there a plug, a self plug, but also to plug Theo's book. All right. So now, Dan, welcome. Dan, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, San
Hey,
Francisco State University.
I love talking about our former students because they're more important. You know, one of the things about being a teacher is you look forward to your students doing better than yourself. It's like being a parent, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that way you're not just a shoulder that they're standing on; you are a springboard, and they're
The high board, yeah.
board. Yeah, I board. They're yeah.
Well,
That's the
you
thing.
know, this guy, he's a musician too,
Oh yeah,
and he's a far better musician than I ever was when I played in bands, and you know, he keeps it up.
yeah. Multi-talented Theo.
Yep,
Great keyboardist.
yes, piano player,
And
yep,
you both are keyboardists. You're a keyboardist too.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I really, yeah, talented guy. Talented guy. Theo Gonzalves, Smithsonian APA, Asian Pacific American 101, Objects, Cultural, Historical, Artistic. It's a new book out, published by the Smithsonian. And if you're into Asian Pacific American history, you'll love it. All right. So now, Dan,
Sir,
we talk about the news, and we're going to get to that AALDEF exit poll. But I want to start off with Israel and Hamas.
oh
And
boy,
just every time it just we think might get better. Maybe they're moving toward a ceasefire. No ceasefire.
no way.
We keep seeing bad pictures come up, and I mean there seems to be some movement in the sense that Blinken says okay he's got the Palestinian Authority saying they'll rule in Hamas and or rule in Gaza, and maybe that's ideal because then Israel can just concentrate and focus on Gaza. As I don't know, I don't know what the way out is, and meanwhile, the war is becoming more real here in the United States. People are talking about it more in a confrontational way. We have protests, we have people dying at protests. We had that one pro-Israel supporter who was attacked by a professor. Did you see that in
Yeah,
Thousand Oaks? The allegedly attacked, and so we don't know what's going to happen. But the professor has been detained and arrested. They're calling it a homicide, and that's sad. And then we have big protests in New York, massive protests in New York, protesting the New York Times,
yep.
and about
I mean, against the New York Times, and yeah.
against the New York Times for its coverage.
Well, you know that attack is actually you can universalize that attack. The reason they went after the New York Times is because it is hailed, right, and regarded as one of the great primary sources that prides itself in accuracy and objectivity of coverage, and that's a problem because the general media is leaning pro-Israeli,
Mm.
very much so, and they are actually quite comparable to the radical right pro-Israeli element within Congress.
Well, it's almost like if people say denounce Fox News for being a silo, it seems that Israel in the United States has its own big media silo in the New York Times and other mainstream outlets right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And if you want to get an alternative view, if you want to get a different view about what's happening, much harder to get. And of course, we have the journalism group, that follows the number of deaths of reporters dying from wars around the country or around the world rather, and they cite the large number of Palestinian reporters who have died because of this conflict. and it's just sad. And one of the things that the protesters tried to bring up is that, well, it's the reporting that fans the flames, the anti-Palestinian flames that exist in that I mean, if you're only hearing one side, you tend toward a bias. If we hear from all sides, maybe. And I from day one, I always said that there's a way to be pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian, and find that way toward peace. I mean, that's always been my idea of where we need to go. But much harder, and now we're like more than a month down, from
I
the
think
start.
I think students over about the last 10 years have been gradually presented a stronger and stronger perception and of the reality, right?
Mhm.
That the Palestinians have faced over the last 50 years. Ever since Israel was created by the West. You know,
Yeah,
and that's the problem. I mean, I think the last time we spoke, I talked about distinguishing between being anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli government, and anti-Netanyahu, right?
yeah,
You can be anti-Israeli government, anti-Israeli policy, and not be anti-Semitic.
yeah,
But people on the right conflate the two. So that
yeah,
if you're at all critical of Israeli politics and government, you're being anti-Semitic. And a lot of people here, Jewish Americans, are pushing that point of view.
yeah.
And now the victimization thing, students being scared and all that. And the last time we talked, I said, well, when what do you think when at Cornell, which is a very exclusive
Ivy
uh,
League school.
institution,
Yeah.
Ivy League institution, that's right. And there are separate facilities for people of Jewish ancestry, right?
Mhm,
Including a separate, because they have to have kosher food, right?
mhm.
Cafeteria. It makes them identifiable, easily identifiable, and it also makes it clear that they're maintaining a separation. And even though it's for cultural and most of all religious reasons, it still maintains a level of segregation that not only makes them identifiable, but it also kind of says we want to stay apart. We want to, and then that brings up memories and notions of segregation.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of ill feeling and kind of underlying emotion
Mhm.
that may be based on that. Now, at some universities, they have Jewish American institutions. They actually have Jewish studies,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and Jewish studies is well funded independently, whether or not it exists at a public university or a private university. They're extremely well funded, and so that perspective, which is usually a pro-Israeli perspective, has been present on American university campuses for almost 50 years.
yeah. So they've had a head start. You
Yes,
said in the last 10 years, a pro-Palestinian view has been more, um, readily available and taught in Arab studies, Muslim studies,
yeah,
Islamic
that's right.
studies throughout.
That's right.
Not
Because those are now newly established.
Yeah, and so now we have a younger crowd, and this is why you see a generational divide.
That's right.
There's more younger people who are
Critical
understanding.
of Israeli policy, and
Right.
the whole, because they're now aware of the entire history,
Yeah.
and that
And,
history is one of suppression and oppression.
yeah. And funny that just over the last couple of weeks, I have heard more just independent speakers saying, God, I wish someone would come out with a kind of primer about this complicated history
Yes,
because everyone is arguing about this and no one understands it. And I have been saying that I think from the first day that I came back from the Harvard campus after they had that doxing episode. I said,
Right.
man, well, we need a teach-in. Someone's got to
Yep.
organize the
Yep.
teach-in so people know what they're arguing about.
Yeah.
And there are some things. I mean, I've seen some things in some news organizations like Axios put out one. How to
Hmm.
understand this, and
Politico.
yeah, Politico. But it's whether or not people will read it, they'll just go with their emotion, go with their gut, go out there and protest, or go out there and speak their minds, or just go off the headlines. But
Yeah. You know what's dangerous right now, though?
yeah,
There's a lot of Instagram and TikTok stuff
oh yeah,
that shows a horribly right uh, violent perspective, criticizing the IDF. It's more than criticizing; it's condemning the IDF for killing Israelis.
yeah,
Okay, and so there's footage that I've seen that looks like it's taken from the cockpit of an attack helicopter with night vision to the ground
yeah.
and machine gun fire from the helicopter to the ground, killing anything around. And what some of these people who are supposed to be firsthand, primary witnesses say that they're IDF. They say that I am a soldier in the IDF, and this is what I was ordered to do.
So I've not seen those TikToks, but one of the things about this whole situation we're in is you can't verify. How do you verify that
That's the problem.
it's true? I mean, and even news organizations, uh, they have to be careful because they've got to, somehow, uh, verify digitally, that something was not made up by AI
Right,
or,
exactly. So,
and so
so
we
both CNN and MSNBC have been trying to do their own independent investigations
yeah,
to the extent that they can.
yeah,
But they both say these are observations by our own reporters, our own the ground reporters, and we're neither being influenced by either Hamas or the Israeli government.
yeah.
And
That
so
is a
that's what they're
significant
trying to do.
change in journalism, and every time there's these technological changes,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been working as a journalist since the late '70s, and every time there's a significant technical advance or technological advance, um, and now where you can have AI pictures and
Oh
AI
man.
generated
A
uh,
lot of it is still detectable. A lot of it is still detectable, but people now are getting into software. I use stuff now for editing video.
yeah,
That's incredible. I mean, it is so seamless that it's very difficult to determine that something may have been generated by AI unless you look at it very carefully. And the problem with Instagram and TikTok is that people see an initial image and that's what captures their attention. And
yeah,
they may not even look at the rest of the story if there is one or any links, right, to
yeah.
actual print media.
Yeah, I mean, look, when the first internet stories came out, how many times did people get duped by wrong information that was put out on the web? I mean, it's one of the reasons that absolutely spoiled April Fools, because people would say, "Oh, this and this and this and such, it's a joke," and say April Fools, but now,
It's all April.
yeah, you can't do that. I
Yeah,
mean, and so I'm just saying,
it's
it's a real
365 April Fools. It's 365 Fools now,
yeah.
man.
Well, it's hard
Oh
uh,
yeah,
when you try to verify these things. And the best thing you can do is, if you want to express yourself about something, yes, do that. But you always have to hold back a little bit if you haven't verified.
that's
So
right.
if you
That's
haven't
right.
verified something to be true, you can't get all hot about something and say, "Hey, look at what this,"
And
and
and unfortunately, the kids want to get all hot. You
yeah,
know that,
well, the
and
kids,
I at
yeah,
an event that I participated in last weekend.
Yeah.
and it was honoring. Actually, it was on Monday, honoring the strikers of 1968-69, the SF state strikers.
Yeah.
People went out of their way to not talk about it. People,
Not talk
and I
about
thought,
Israel and
yeah,
Hamas.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
because they didn't want to get hot. And also, the president and the vice president didn't show up, not even to cameo the event, which I thought was kind of telling.
Wow. Well, why was the event on the strike? Was there an anniversary that I missed?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
It was the
wow.
55th anniversary of
The
November
55th.
6th, 55th. And I think the reason they do these half decade anniversaries is because we're starting to drop like flies. There were about 6 people who were strikers that passed away in the last year. And,
Well,
and two of them were close friends of mine, you know.
that is the truth. I mean, one of the things that I just by attending a couple of 3, 4 reunions in the last couple of years, uh, the thing that I remember most is when you first walk in, there's usually a list of
Yeah,
all the
that's
people
right.
who
Who
aren't
passed?
there,
Yeah, that's right.
and then when you leave, you say, "Thank goodness we're here and
That
we've
and
survived."
I almost hate it when people say that. I say, "Oh man, it's great to see you," and then look at you and they say, "Yeah, I'm still here," and it's like
I but
they
it's
even say, "I'm still alive." You know what I
yeah,
mean? Shit.
it's the truth though. I mean, well,
Uh,
all right. So look, I'm glad that you had. I mean, there was that there was a kind of tension when you talked about the strike thing.
yeah.
But I bring all this up because just in the last couple of days, you got Harvard's president Claudine Gay. She's coming out saying, you know, almost trying to backtrack and make up for the fact that they were slow, slow to respond. And then,
Well, that 2% of American population is quite influential
yeah,
beyond their numbers.
you're talking about the Israel.
Jewish American population. They're only two
Yeah,
percent of
yeah,
now. Now the thing is, there's a lot of people who have married out
yeah.
that aren't straight up Jewish, and they may not even go to Sabbat, right? They don't attend services and stuff,
Yeah.
but they still have Jewish sensibilities. So I don't know, that 2%, is kind of misleading, but they are very influential in American society.
Well, especially at a school like Harvard, where you've got not just the general population, but you have people within, uh, uh, the Harvard ranks who, like the
The
former
faculty, yeah,
president,
the faculty and administration,
faculty,
yeah, correct.
yeah, people who are
I think
donors,
they're
very
overrepresented. People say that all the time. I mean,
yeah,
remember the old jokes about my son and my daughter, the
yeah,
lawyer,
yeah, yeah,
and damn, at when I was clerking, three of the managing attorney and two of the senior attorneys working at the legal aid office where I interned were all Jewish American,
yeah,
and they went to Ivy League schools for undergrad, and they went to Stanford for graduate
mm,
studies. Come on, you know, if that doesn't raise the specter, right, of elite, right,
yeah,
membership, I don't know what does, right?
yeah. Well, the thing is, when I mentioned Gay, Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard, she's
Yeah, she's
African
black.
American.
I don't know if everybody knows that she's African American, but
Yeah, yeah,
she's
she's
black.
African American, and she's she's trying her best, and she met with the folks at Hillel. She met, I don't know. It's almost like her first year. She was just inaugurated
Yeah.
as president, and then this happened. No, it's really
Oh
it's sad
yeah. No, no. I mean,
because
moments like this are just incredibly challenging.
yeah.
So
Well, this is
I
gonna
say the word challenging, and it feels so lightweight, because
well,
it's
it
difficult.
is it is well, all right. So you got the Harvard thing, and then of course the Cornell situation
Oh
you
man.
mentioned, and it's happening on all the
All the
campuses
campuses.
about what.
It's at Cal. It's at Cal.
Yeah,
It's at SF State. There's been continuing conflict at SF
yeah,
State
yeah. And then
for the past 20 years.
yeah, and I just read today, Axios reports how it's happening at city councils.
Oh
where
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, people are, this is coming up. The divide isn't MAGA, non-MAGA. It's Israel, Hamas. That's like the new, you know, dividing line on opinions, and uh, it's usually when something that's geopolitical comes up in a local context, you figure Californians, you know,
Yeah.
California city councils, they'll weigh in. Oh, we're going to stop a nuclear free zone over Berkeley, or
Yeah.
something. You know, but this is now you're seeing it happening in places like Chicago and
Yeah.
Tampa and Philadelphia, and like I said, in California, you're going to see places like the Richmond City Council. You know, um,
Oh yeah.
they do something.
They've definitely taken a turn to the left. Even
Yeah,
more so than Berkeley.
yeah. And well, it's affordable. Number one, it really is more the place of the people, Richmond, and they had 5 hours of discussion of public testimony, and it was the first by a U.S. city in solidarity with Palestinians. The Richmond City Council lengthy resolution on October 25th. So, I mean, this is a trend. It's happening. It's not going away until what? Hostages are released, until there's a ceasefire, until there's a
Right.
two-state solution. What?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. This is like going to be the ongoing thing.
It's going to be longer term than people want for sure,
Yeah.
but it's going to be rationalized completely by the Israeli government without regard to Netanyahu. Netanyahu, the sad thing is, despite the fact that he is now not popular among the great majority
Mhm.
of Israelis, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to switch horses in the middle of a war. So there has to be a point at which the IDF attacks in Gaza start to slow down at least, so that they can return to dealing with their own internal politics
Yeah.
and maybe jettison Netanyahu. But the question that arises every time you're dealing with a very powerful uh, person like Netanyahu has been over the past 15 years, right?
Mhm.
Is who's next? Who's going to replace him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the right in the Israeli right wing is really extreme, and people ironically have said they're the new Nazis, right?
Yeah.
And wow, is that extreme? That's stupid to make that kind of a statement.
The new Nazis.
Yeah, some people have said that. Some people who are pro-Palestinian.
Yeah.
I've heard it, and then you have idiots like Hawley in the Senate, right? And Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, accusing, was it Tom Cotton? I don't think even he is that stupid, but one of them said they called Zelensky a Nazi, and
Oh,
Zelensky's family was persecuted by the Nazis, and he himself is obviously Jewish.
yeah. Well, see, there's a lot of ignorance going around from top to,
Hey,
and
and the performative so-called conservatism, right?
yeah, and I don't know where this leaves us. I don't know where or how we free ourselves from this, because it seems like this is gonna be the new norm in politics, that we are on edge, we are divided, and Thanksgiving this year is going to be very different. Or
I,
well,
I,
actually,
I,
it's going to be worse.
there are flashes of intelligent conservatism coming from the Republican Party. They're just flashes. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
On the other hand, there have been a slew of resignations, right? And unfortunately, one of the Democratic resignations now is basically Manchin. He's not resigning, but he says he's not going to run again in 2024,
Yeah.
and that's a red ass state, right?
Yeah.
I mean that
Well,
West
that's trouble
Virginia.
for trouble for the Democrats because
Exactly. So now we have to compete even successfully in states like Florida. Whoa, really?
yeah,
We missed in Mississippi, so
uh,
that's
but,
still
but good in Kentucky and good in Ohio, and I'm
yeah.
glad that this is the natural segue into domestic politics
Yep.
because the election this year, it I wasn't. It didn't even dawn on me that ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, would do an exit poll this year. Because it's not a big.
Yeah, well, evidently they've got enough funding to do that, and it must, I will say, full disclosure, I donate to AALDEF, so
Yeah, well, I full disclosure, I work for. I don't work for them, but I work with them, and I also donate as
and
well.
and,
So
and they actually tolerate your analytical perspective. I
yeah,
mean,
well, they like free speech. They like the First Amendment. But no, the ALDEF poll this year kind of surprised me, but it came at a good time because we needed to know where Asian Americans stood because none of the polls that came out this week or since last Sunday, and then CNN came out with their poll on Thursday, which said essentially the same thing that Biden was on the ropes, looked like he was being defeated by Trump, and the New York Times poll went as far as to say that a generic Democrat could beat Trump, but not Biden. So we needed,
there we go.
yeah, we
You know,
needed to
I'm
hear
not
from.
surprised by that at all.
Yeah, but we needed to hear where Asian Americans stood because the other thing that came out of those polls was that Hispanics and blacks were like drifting away. That the Biden
Yeah,
stronghold on
yeah.
these people of color, these communities of color, not as strong as in the past, and this was maybe the explanation of why Biden's, he's it's not just that he's old, although that was a complaint by some in the polls, exit polls, mind you, uh, but there's that feeling that okay, where do Asian Americans stand? So the ALDEF poll said that, and the thing about the ALDEF poll, I don't like polls ordinarily. I talk about them, but the thing about polls is don't put too much don't put too much credence on them. I mean, talk about them for the day, the week, but that's about it. I mean, it's like it's got all the value of yesterday's Kleenex, ultimately,
The
right?
typical political commentator, the people who do political commentary as their job, 100%.
Mhm.
They use the term snapshot in time.
Yes, yes. Well, I
It's
look,
really a snapshot in time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I talk about politics a fair amount, but and I also use the term. Maybe because I hear them use the term snapshot now, because it is a
That's
snapshot.
it. That's accurate. That's an accurate statement.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it'll tell
Nope,
you. Look,
definitely.
I like it's like toilet paper in hand.
Oh
It'll tell
no. Oh
it'll tell
no.
you if you have poop on your hands, and then you wash it, and you're good. You're good. That's the way you got to look at it. You don't. It's not like the fabric that in which you build a presidential campaign or your
Right.
presidential, your hopes on. But it tells you where you are, and then you make an adjustment,
we
and you
just we just lost half of our female audience. You realize that?
no, no, no. This is an apt comparison. No, that the poll. Here's the other reason why I like the ALDEF poll. I like the ALDEF poll because number one, 1,400 Asian American voters. That's who they surveyed. I don't think in any of the random polling done by the mainstream you'll get 1,400 Asian Americans in anything. I mean, I just find that hard to believe. That in a main, and that's why the mainstream polls never break out, beyond black, Hispanic, white, whites with education. They never get it down to Asian
Yeah,
American.
male, female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Asian Americans, there's never enough in the sample. They'll always say low sample size. Sorry, you don't exist, Asian Americans. So the ALDEF poll says they go out of the way. They
It's
went,
not a good sign. I was looking at.
what? Dan. Oh, we lost Dan.
Oh no,
That,
I'm here.
oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, I mean the thing about the AALDEF poll is that it went to 7 states: Georgia, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and they talked to 1,400 Asian American voters. I mean that is a significant number. And here's what they found.
That's good. That's a
Also,
decent, yeah, sample.
yeah, they also did it in language. So there were 11 Asian American languages, including Arabic, Bengali, Chinese, Gujarati, Hindi, Khmer, Korean, Punjabi, Tagalog, Urdu, and Vietnamese. And I swear Gallup doesn't use one of those any of those languages.
Yeah, you got that.
Or any of the other pollsters. They're never going to say, "Hey, Mr. Gujarati, we want your opinion. Tell me your opinion." No, it's like you don't exist. If you're Gujarati or Hindi or Khmer, they don't make the distinction. They see an Asian
Unless you're Ramaswamy.
unless you're Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy, he's more on Ramaswamy later.
Yeah, but he
But,
doesn't even talk Hindi or Urdu or anything.
but
He
he
just
is look
he talks gibberish.
one yeah, one thing I'll say about Ramaswamy, he is vegetarian. That's
you
all right,
know, that just got 50% of the vegan crowd back on beef.
no, he's not
Give me
vegan.
that pork hot dog, man.
He's not vegan. He's vegetarian, which is it's okay. It's better. It shows a kind of a moral sensitivity that he then loses on all the other points that he
Yeah,
talks.
I think he's got an avocado pit for a brain, though. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, no, he's a smart guy, but he doesn't really want to be president. He wants to be the Asian American talk show host. He doesn't want to be. He wants to be the Asian Trump. He wants to do The Apprentice. He wants to do the Asian American Apprentice. That's what he wants. All right. So
He
look,
might get competition from the older, South Asian gadfly from Goa.
from Goa.
Yeah,
Who's that?
he's got a Portuguese last name, but he's South Asian.
I don't know from Goa.
Okay, I'm going to leave it hanging out there and let the audience figure it out.
From Goa, huh? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Hey, look. All right. So here's the finding of the AALDEF poll.
Well, his family's from Goa anyway. He may have been born here, but yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Abortion, 64.5%.
We're looking national, right? We're looking national.
Yeah, Asian Americans, abortion, multi-state poll, 64.5% for abortion, and 64.5% to protect transgender people. And even though they tend to vote Democratic, like in the 60% range, which I would think would be lower than I would expect. But in terms of Biden approval rating on the multi-state poll, only 35.4% approve of Biden.
I get 40. I see 45%.
No, multi-state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Biden approval rating 35.4%, and then disapprove 42.1%, which is much higher than I would think.
Yeah.
And then don't know, I'm apolitical, 22.5. Now, in some areas, the Biden approval rating, might be slightly higher, although like in Philadelphia it was 47.3 approval. In Boston, which is real, Democratic stronghold, approval, 29.8 approval rating. Those are the two biggest cities. New Jersey, the Biden approval rating only 34.8. So multi-state, the Biden approval rating among Asian Americans, 35.4%.
Yep.
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then disapproval, 42.1. And as I point out in my column today, I was kind of surprised by that because I thought that considering what Biden has done for Asian Americans, not only did he pick Kamala Harris, but he also went out of his way to make sure that Asian Americans felt comfortable after the pandemic's,
the anti-Chinese stuff,
yeah.
which equates to anti-anybody with tight eyes.
Yeah, I mean it's an anti-AAPI.
That's right. That's
hate
right. They
thing.
never, people chink the hell out of me
Yeah.
and most other people, regardless of what their actual ethnicity or national origin happen to be. They
Well,
were all Chinese.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Whether if you look at the victims of the stop, of the hate crimes that took place, a lot of them were Filipinos. The most famous one, I think, for New Yorkers, the guy who had his face slashed in the subway.
Right, in the subway.
Yeah. I mean, this is what Biden did. He went out, reminded people that AAPI were Americans too. It was one of his opening proclamations the week after he won. And I would think that that would get him a little more a little more loyalty. So I was disappointed that his disapproval rating was at 41.2%.
Yeah,
But
you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see the age grouping.
well,
You
yeah,
know,
I don't have the crosstabs there. But yeah, but that would be interesting. I would say if you were voting on this election day, because it wasn't there were no really big issues except Ohio had its abortion
abortion.
issue. Virginia had its issues with the full slate of state legislators. Boston had a city
Yeah,
council.
Youngkin got his butt kicked in it. That made me happy.
Yeah, well, but I just think that uh, the demographics are going to vary in a poll like this.
Oh yeah,
In an
and the
election like
regional aspects are going to vary too. Did you check out the Texas results?
oh yeah, the Texas
I
results.
mean, it's like the opposite of the national.
Yeah. But the Texas was but I was like I was just trying to focus on the ones where I had some kind of information on, like in terms of AAPI community. Because the AALDEF poll wasn't in Texas. I suppose
I they show Texas.
um, I don't
I
I
got
don't
Texas, Michigan.
know. They're
Those are
not
the last two that I have on my list.
uh, for the AALDEF poll. I don't think so.
Let me look. Yeah, Asian American vote, ALDEF. Yeah.
I don't see it.
So the list is published from New York, and
When
then there's a section. The heading is preliminary results, and starts out with the national result. Moves
I
to I
I
got
don't see it.
Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia,
Yeah.
Florida, and even in Florida, which most of us, I kind of equate Florida with Texas, in terms of the pattern, right?
Yeah.
Pro
I
Republican, but Texas is way over, man. Michigan and Texas.
Well, I don't see those numbers.
Okay,
I
well let me tell you what mine
yeah,
show. Okay, it
yeah.
says vote for House Representatives 43.9% Democrat, 52.6% Republican.
Mm.
So more
Well, I
Texas. That's
I would say I know instances anecdotally where that's probably in line. I mean, I was talking with a Filipina who's in the real estate business, and she said she said tell all your friends who are moving to Texas, that we'll help them find a home. I said, well, I lived there before, and I'm not sure except for the politics. I like Texas except for the politics. And they said, oh, well, Emil, aren't you Republican? She said that.
she asked that. Yeah,
She asked that, and I just it
she
stunned me.
doesn't read your column and she doesn't watch this
Yeah,
podcast.
I guess that must be it. But anyway, well, that doesn't surprise me. Anyway, my point about um, where or what Biden should do now is he should just relax and realize that we're a year away.
He's got
And
to do his job. He's got so much stuff to do, man. I mean,
yeah,
these are serious challenges that Obama's challenges, with the exception of the continuing problem with Afghanistan and the search for Bin Laden, which turned out well for him,
mhm,
was all domestic issues. The biggest issues were domestic issues. You got in the first 2 years, when they had control of both houses, right? They
mhm.
didn't do enough work, and I was I don't know if you remember, but I was really critical. I mean, we had our discussions back then,
Yeah.
and I was really critical of them for going for healthcare first instead of infrastructure. If they had gone for infrastructure and spent some money out there, it would have paved a much smoother road towards healthcare. But they went successfully with healthcare, but that's as far as they got.
Yeah. Well, there goes your capital pretty much, right?
Exactly.
Your capital. But
They
I have
shot
to
it all.
I have
They
to say
shot their
this.
wad, as we like to say.
Yeah, I would say this though. Even though they did talk about infrastructure, Biden ultimately got it done a little bit this time around.
Well, actually, in Obama's second term, right in the last year and a half,
Mm.
he got an infrastructure bill through. The
Right.
Democrats were able to get it was bipartisan.
Yeah. I mean, I actually am glad they got healthcare through first because that has been something that Hillary under the Bill Clinton administration was pushing, never got very far.
Yeah,
And
all they did was misogynize the hell out of it. They just
yeah. Well, but the
yeah,
thing about healthcare is that it is one of the things that as much as we, kind of say, oh, Obama, what did he do? There are people who are alive because of Obama.
there are people who could afford to buy a home
Yeah.
and pay for their kids' college and all the rest of that stuff
Yeah. But
because of the availability of healthcare.
yeah. Well, but I think moreover than that, people were actually able to get their cancer medicine and
Sure.
to get treated
Yeah.
and are alive today because of
Yeah. And now Biden has even done that for diabetics, right?
yeah.
So
I think that so I like to be critical of Obama because I wish he could have gone further and done more. But you
man, he's
know,
black. He's black, man.
yeah. Oh,
Under underlying all of the stuff, the party of no and all the rest of that,
yeah,
underlying all of that was on the left, people had expectations because he's half black, and consider that black. And on the right, he's black.
yeah,
There's no way that he should have ever been president because they don't call it the White House for nothing.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that um, he he held his punches. I mean, I think you
He
can say
had to.
that
He
about
had
Obama.
to. He
Yeah.
had to. Can you imagine what would happen if he came out and said what really was on his mind? Remember that SNL bit
Yeah.
with
No, I don't remember
Key?
that one.
Oh no. Well,
But look, I
Key,
can imagine. I can imagine.
Key and Peele. Key and Peele
Yeah,
had a really good bit, right?
yeah,
The two when they were still a duo, right? The
yeah.
comedian, and they had a when they'd go on SNL sometimes as guests, or one of them would, and he would do the subconscious.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah. What
yeah.
what what Obama would really say.
What he was really thinking, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the truth, though. You play politics, you're covering up,
That's right.
and so thank goodness for. I mean, then the people who are more honest and are more truthful, they get shot down.
Yes,
They get metaphorically.
well, sometimes more than
Sometimes,
metaphorically.
yeah. But I mean, but the thing is, you if you want truthful politicians, uh, the successful ones aren't so truthful. All right, so look, here's the other thing that came out last week, and this was the um, the Ohio vote to uh,
Yeah.
to put abortion in the Constitution. I think this is going to be the issue that saves the Democrats because it showed that in a right wing state, in a red state, you turn it blue, and you know this is going to be a problem for Republicans. And I don't know. I was watching Fox on election night and on Hannity.
Did you take a shower afterwards?
Yeah, well, no. Yeah, on Hannity, they were kind of. I just wanted to hear what they were saying. On Hannity, they were freaking out. Oh man, we're losing. We got to be known as more than just the baby party, but they're the baby party, and I think they discovered that Republican women in the suburbs want to have the abortion if they
Well, they
feel.
keep talking the ninth right up until birth
Yeah,
abortions. They keep talking that stuff, you
yeah.
know? And even under Roe, that would have been illegal.
Yeah.
Even under Roe, Roe allowed options of choice all the way up to the end of the second trimester. Okay. And in the third, only when the death of the mother was a real risk. That's it. And so
Yeah.
these guys, they make it sound like we're killing babies as they're born. And it's just really gross. And
Well,
so,
it's a tactic. It's a tactic from the
sure it
right
is.
to
Sure it is.
scare
And people
people.
on their side believe that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
well, you got
so
the evangelicals out there with them.
Well, once they believe that, it's okay for them to kill us. It's
Yeah.
okay for them to go to a Planned Parenthood office and start killing people. They've killed doctors over this. They've killed people who were just personnel at,
Yeah.
at Planned Parenthood offices.
Well,
So
I'm just saying that the Republicans now find themselves at this position where they now find abortion to be a losing issue, and they won on the federal level because they stacked the courts. But now, if they go state by state, they're not going to be as successful as they'd hoped, and they're going to
which
have
is what the Supreme Court said.
yeah,
It's a state by state thing. And so
yeah,
now people are doing it according to what the Supreme Court's allowed.
and so they're going to it's going to show that a lot of states are going to go blue instead of red,
They
and
don't. They may not
Ohio,
want to. I mean, the leadership, the political majority in their houses, in their legislatures, they may not want to, but the voters want to.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. The voters they haven't listened to their voters, and now they have to because they haven't they've avoided going to their voters on abortion because they just had it on
You know
this
what?
federal level.
They're caught. They're caught. Okay, because
Yeah.
even though Trump himself,
Mm,
who is their pope, right?
right, right.
Trump himself is backing up on abortion. I mean, even a year and a half ago, he was saying he didn't back up on his position on abortion. He had to still say I'm pro-life. But
Yeah,
what he said was, you can't use this as one of your major platform planks. You can't put this out front because it's going to hurt you. He
yeah.
was saying that a year and a half ago.
I haven't heard him talk about abortion since
Not
Ohio.
not lately.
Yeah, but you know what? This is what I think, and I wrote this in my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. I say at some point the GOP is going to have to bring up race with
Oh,
abortion.
thank you, sir.
They're going to have to bring up
Are
race with
you doing
abortion.
this just because I'm emeritus ethnic studies? Are you? Is that the reason? Because
Well, no, it's not that. It's just that
oh, you're really being
they're going to
objective.
they're going to say the Republicans are going to say this. They're going to say, okay, you can have all your abortions. We don't want to have to pay for your kids' education and their health care and their safety anyway. We don't want to have to pay for, especially you BIPOC populations. We don't want to have
Right.
to pay for your babies
Yeah.
and your health care.
Yeah.
And considering the low U.S. birth rates,
Yeah.
we want to make sure that if our birth rates are down, we want to make sure the BIPOC populations are down.
Right.
I think that's why the GOP will bring up race with abortion in much the same way as racism has been a factor in immigration.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's just the natural way to go for a political party bent on standing up for its white supremacy roots.
Whoa.
That's what I said
You're
in my
sounding
column.
kind of radical there, my brother.
Well, I'm just saying the Ohio vote shows the GOP has already lost its way in the issue. They don't want to lose another red MAGA state. They don't want another red MAGA state to flip blue. So instead of saying, we were wrong to take this right away, this right of abortion away, I think the odds are good for the pro-baby GOP to go completely MAGA racist on abortion. It's a face-saving gesture, and it's consistent.
Wow.
It's consistent with its racist immigration and southern border.
Wow.
I'm just saying that that's the way that you think of how do Republicans act? Do they act rationally? Do they act like oh no, they can't go that far, and then they go that far, right?
But
January
see,
6th, we say, oh, you can't go that far. Oh, they go that far. on the southern border. Uh, we
They
say
go
they can't go that far, but yes, they
they go
separate.
beyond they go beyond that far.
Yeah,
They go beyond that
separate.
far.
Yeah, they
Look at Mike
separate.
Johnson. Look at Mike Johnson,
Yeah,
right? They what you know they went through McCarthy, right?
yeah,
And he was kind of weak skinned,
mm,
okay. Never show fear, right?
mm,
McCarthy showed fear, and so he got jackaled. He got
yeah,
jackaled. He got eaten by his own. Okay, okay. Then they went for Jim Jordan, and he still didn't know how to put on a sports jacket,
mm,
and he just rolled up his sleeves, and he got eaten. Right? He didn't have it. He didn't have what it took. So they finally saw we can't keep doing this because we look really inane.
yeah,
We look like we're completely incompetent, and all this stuff is going on globally, and we're not doing it. We're not dealing with it, and we have an impending doom of busted government with no economy, no budget coming up in mid-November. So
yeah,
they were really scared. They were desperate. You
yeah,
gotta watch out, right? Rule number
yeah,
one: never act out of desperation. Never do that. They
yeah,
did it, and
yeah,
they've got Mike Johnson, okay, and
uh,
this guy who is not an idiot. He is smarter than McCarthy, right?
yeah,
He's smarter than Jim Jordan, okay? He's not an idiot, but he comes out with these extreme positions, right? That's not irrationality.
yeah,
He actually believes that stuff.
yeah.
Okay,
He's MAGA. He
he's
is,
MAGA all the way. He's true MAGA.
and that's why I say at some point on the abortion issue, to save
It's going
face,
to get racial.
they're going to get racial. Hey, you black people, you brown people, you Asian people, you want to kill your babies? Go right ahead. Be my guest. We need to do something about your populations, and
Right,
we
right.
need the white populations to, we need it to stay above. We need. I just think that at some point, yes, it's going to get racial, and I hope not soon, but I think you just outlined, Mike Johnson's, you know, his mindset. Um, they don't want to lose another MAGA state. They don't want to lose a. They don't want to see red states flipping on one issue
And
because,
they need to lose Congress completely, and we need a Democrat in the presidency. And if that happens in 2024, right, then the
mm,
question that arises is, are we going to go hard on prosecuting the people in Congress who were part of January 6th?
well, I hope that God, part of me wants to be more empathetic. A part of me wants to be
Okay, so you think Josh Hawley doing this and urging people on, that's cool, right? That's okay. We can
no,
forgive that. We
no.
can
I
forgive
mean,
that,
I'm
right?
just saying. I want to see the. I want the way to take the emotion out of it is to say, let's go to the letter of the law.
Well,
And
that's what we've been doing, and look at what the right has been saying.
yeah,
That
well,
it's perverse. They're
this
saying it's all been turned into a political scam. This
right,
is all political. It's not about law. It's
yeah,
about politics. That's all they have to say. That's their biggest argument right now.
right, and that's why why Donald Trump isn't more morose and despondent than he should be.
Yeah, well, he's going to get crazier too. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the
Oh
stupid
yeah.
things that
I
he
mean,
said.
the
They keep doing that.
The Wash the Washington Post reported that he's already trying to line up all his fascist lawyers, and to get the Insurrection Act, on day one, invoked so that he can go after people he doesn't like. So,
Yeah,
uh,
including Republicans,
oh
including
yeah,
people that
oh
used
yeah,
to be top on his list are people that used to be part of his administration.
oh
His cabinet.
he's out to get General Milley. He's out to get his former chief of staff. Oh, he's probably what's his name? Mark Meadows is on his probably on
Well,
his
that's his chief of staff. But Bill
yeah
Barr, he's going to
yeah
go after all those guys.
yeah. So anyway, I don't think, to get back to our original topic, I don't think that Joe Biden, even though the exit polls and the other polls that have been out in the last, say, week or so, have not been very complimentary to his candidacy. I think with a year to go, he's got some time, and we'll see. We'll see if he can right the
Yeah,
ship.
but stuff can happen.
Yeah,
With the Israeli Hamas thing, and Iran standing there, still financing all of these groups that are doing hits on American military installations in Syria and Iraq.
Hmm.
That could blow up. And if it does, that's really tough.
Yeah.
That's really a tough one. And we should be watching what South Korea is doing in the meantime, and what that alliance between Russia and Iran is doing in the meantime. The
Not.
Iranian leadership, man, they're really striding cocky right now. They're
Yeah.
taking huge freaking steps. They're laughing, right,
Yeah.
at the West and at NATO,
Yeah.
and they're going to end up paying a price. And you know what? That the biggest threat is going to come from internal. It's going to be internal.
In Iran.
Yes.
All right. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
They've
I
been
know that.
sitting on a powder keg. They put it down effectively, because it was about the hijab, right?
Yeah.
And somebody not wearing it properly, and then people getting behind that killing. And but it's going to be worse than that. They're going to, if the UN comes down with a bar and says you got to stop funding all of these people that are attacking Israel,
Mhm.
it's going to cause a lot of problems for them. And
Yeah.
they're really, it's overdue.
Yeah.
Having the mullahs rule that country is way overdue. Their greatest advancement happened under a freaking Catholic regime, right?
Mhm.
Which
Well,
was a minority regime. But that they know that, and there's a lot of resistance internally from younger people and from women.
yeah.
So they're going to pay a price.
Well, let's see also what happens next week when Biden and President Xi meet
And she, yeah, on Wednesday.
San
I think it's
Francisco.
it's set
I
up
thought
on
it was,
Wednesday.
I
I hope
thought it
they
was
clean up
this
the
week.
Embarcadero, man. It's embarrassing.
Well, you know,
I went. Linda and I went walking, on the Embarcadero, man, and it was hard to find places that didn't have, American. I think it's human feces,
yeah,
smeared on it. It's gross. You know,
really,
the, the
I hadn't been there in a while, so
It's
I
gross, man. I mean, the garbage cans, the public trash cans, they look like they hadn't been emptied in at least a week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know what they do. I don't know what DPW is doing, but it's awful. I mean, I
yeah,
would not. And we're talking about a major tourist area, right? That's what people from all over the world see.
yeah.
So why don't you get your act together, for God's sake?
Well, I mean, I think that like just to show you how much attention I've been paying to it. I mean, I knew it was going to happen. It starts. I guess it started yesterday, Thursday, and it extends to next week. I thought it was going to happen this week, but and so I was prepared to hear something, and I didn't hear anything. And I said, well, "Where's the news from APEC?"
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
usually it's just a photo op of all the leaders in their, in the cultural garb of the
yeah,
country they visit.
yeah. It's like, yeah, it's another UN event essentially.
Yeah. So usually, and then when they go to the Philippines, they wear barongs, and when they go to Indonesia, But now here, what would they be wearing? They look like homeless people
Yeah,
in San
t-shirts,
Francisco.
t-shirts and jeans.
T-shirts and jeans.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
no,
See, when people aren't homeless when they have jeans with holes in them.
oh, that's a fashion statement. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Those are the
yeah.
expensive ones.
That's it. Especially when you can tell that the holes have a geometric pattern, and they're not actually associated with wear patterns,
Yeah.
right?
Well, of
You know,
course, Dan, you had to pay someone to put the holes in the
yeah,
jeans.
yeah,
So
yeah. And they
that's
have to look worn too. So.
yeah. So, Dan, one last word on Veterans Day.
Yes, sir.
It's tomorrow, and we mentioned the first and second Filipino infantry.
Well, there are a whole lot of Asian American veterans. There are a
Yeah,
lot of Asian American veterans at all of the wars, and after 9/11, there were a lot of volunteers from
yeah,
Asian American communities, and 9/11, man, is 20 years back,
yeah,
and well, 22 years to be exact. And so there are people who are now retired, who were full time, and others who were reservists
mm,
that have got more than 20 years in. Um, And the problem is, we like to thank people for their service, but we don't thank them enough. You know, thanking
Yeah.
them in words is not the same as thanking them in deed. And that means making sure that they have available health care, housing, and so forth. I mean,
Benefits, ha-
yeah, for,
have
for,
their have
for
their
three
HBO.
generations, ever since Vietnam, for three generations,
Yeah.
a lot of the people who are homeless have been veterans
Yeah.
of
And
all the world wars.
pay for their cell phone
Sure.
and any.
Their freaking healthcare. The VA has gotten better, but it's gotten better under Democrats. You know,
Yeah.
people like to hate on Feinstein and they like to hate on Pelosi. But what I say to the veterans is, who got stuff done to fix the VA so that you can get in there and get your healthcare, man? You know,
That's the truth. Yeah.
and who cut stuff back? I mean, it was disgusting to me. We had relatives that were in the reserves and some that were in active military still, and they were pro-Trump. And they said, "Well, he's my president," and I said, "He's the commander in chief." Yes, and you
Yeah.
have to obey that stuff, but you don't have to like it.
Yeah.
You are committed to the Constitution, not to the president. But and they would look at me like, and they had no comeback.
Yeah. Well, the paper is more important than the person. Yeah.
You, yeah, well, when the paper happens to be the Constitution, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, tell that to the so-called right-wing Republicans. Tell
Well.
that to you know, all of the ecclesiasticals, and the born agains and everybody else, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you that we can't forget these veterans, and I like the fact that in the last couple of years, I guess it's been more like 6 or 7 years. They've put out these congressional gold medals, and that's meaningful. I mean,
Yeah, they started doing it in 2018. Yeah, so it's
yeah,
been about 5 years.
I had a friend the other day who said, "Yeah, I went to the high school thing we had at Lowell, and then the next day, um, my father got the gold medal, and then it reminded me once again that some Filipinos in my age group, they were sons of veterans, and my father wasn't, and that was really a turning point in my life, and but I'm happy for those who were members of the military, not because they happened to be part of a killing force,
Well,
but
you know how I cover it in my class is I talk about the ones who stayed behind
yeah.
because they were either too old or they were in a service industry that was exempt from the draft.
Like
And
what? Which ones were exempt?
some of the food industry and agriculture,
Really?
anything food production. I mean, we're talking about fishing, agriculture, and all that. You got to feed your people. You got to feed the soldiers. You got to feed the military.
Yeah.
So they were exempt from the draft. And
Yeah.
so the way that I deal with that is, what were they doing with their time and their money? And they were buying war bonds. So
Ah.
you
Yeah.
ought to look at your own personal history and look at what your father did, because I'll bet you he was buying war bonds, and that was their way of contributing to the effort in support of democracy and against fascism.
Yeah. I don't know if my dad bought war bonds, but I
Oh,
know he was he.
ridiculous amount of money. I mean, there was a huge amount of money. We're talking millions of dollars a year, and back then, millions of dollars a year is like billions of dollars today.
Yeah. 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 Well, I just think that from whatever your perspective about Asian Americans, about Americans in the military, we remember our veterans, and we do thank them for their service, and it's important. I personally am a pacifist. The idea of war, I can't stand, but I I understand why we have a fighting force. I understand that why they're there.
Yeah, it's like, why do we have police? I mean, we all are against the abuse of military, the potential abuses of military. by military, both obviously abroad, because the military is not supposed to function, right, domestically. But then we have instead the police, and
Yeah.
we're all aware of the abuse that police are capable of. A lot of people are ignorant of the fact that private police and public police systems were started at during the period of slavery,
Mhm.
when people were escaping slavery by simply crossing state lines. And so the early police forces were really about recapturing slaves, and
Yeah.
and rendering back to their masters in the slave states. So there's obviously a racial and class element to all of that.
Yeah.
It has survived the end of the Civil War, and it has survived even the civil rights activities, the successful civil rights activities that produced an expanded understanding of the purpose of the 14th Amendment, right? And
Yeah.
civil rights. So that's where we're at. You know, that's the way we need to make that connection. Is here's the origin of public police forces,
Yeah.
and so you shouldn't be surprised by some of the behavior that
Yeah.
that
I mean, history, if you follow the history, the historical DNA, you'll find why people act the way they act now.
Mhm.
And in the force, and it's kind of a genetic, uh, industrial genetic thing.
Well, yeah, and the same thing was true of the military. I mean, when did you see the number of BIPOC generals and admirals? That's a new thing. Even women, right,
Yeah.
in those high position, in 2, 3, 4 star positions.
Yeah.
That's very recent.
Well, this is what happens when you have a slow moving diversity. Ultimately, you get to, you see some changes.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you also see reaction to those changes.
yeah, well, the reaction will never go away. There'll always be some kind of resistance, but I
You
think
mean, like, are you associating Senator Tuberville with?
no. I'm just saying that
Oh, you're
you're,
not. Well, I am.
yeah. I'm saying that you're just, you know, I don't know. I was just talking to a friend of mine. Um, she's a sociologist, and she was writing about how to make kids feel welcome in in university settings where they are in the minority, right? They're not, you know,
Oh, wow,
wealthy,
that's
white.
a biggie.
Yeah, and they're people of color from either rural going to an urban school, or urban going to a rural school, or they were, working class. And a lot of the same things that they felt, or that they're going through. I recall me feeling the same thing 50 years ago
Hmm,
when I
hmm.
was, in college, and I'm thinking, God, we have not. I mean, if
Well,
we're,
and that's because our numbers are still really small at the really
yeah,
most exclusive institutions. The group that has made inroads more than any of the other people of color is Asians.
yeah,
Okay, and you'll recall that in the 80s, they were all upset. The big institutions were saying, "Why are so many Asians qualifying beyond above whites? Right? Why are they qualifying?" And they did this whole set of studies. I mean, all of the universities were doing studies on why are Asians, performing so well. And it came down to, is it the way they're raised? Is it
yeah,
socialization, or is it genetic? And I said, "Oh crap! They're going to talk about genetics." And then students are saying, "Why is that such a big deal to you?" And I said, "Do you know how the Nazis went after Jews? Okay. Do you know that that was based on genetics?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then I started talking about California's history of
Uh,
mental institutions,
Eugenics, yeah,
and how eugenics was adopted by a majority of the states,
yeah,
you know and so listen, listen to this stuff. When they start talking about, is it genetics, that's a danger sign.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because we all know it's because of our tiger moms, right?
Yeah.
It's
It's
our
socialization. It's entirely socialization, right?
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I just when I was talking to my friend about how she made it work with her class and how it helped these students. And I said, God, I wish I had something like this when I was around because it
yeah.
would have made me because it the end goal is empathy. The end goal is creating a sense of empathy for your fellow student,
I
uh,
know.
and to let them see that we are not very different from each other, so that
But I'll give you one of my experiences from childhood was when the Russians rolled over Czechoslovakia and Hungary, right? And they were looking at Poland real strong, but they succeeded in Czechoslovakia and Hungary, what was then called Czechoslovakia and Hungary. And we got a lot of Hungarians and Eastern Europeans, right, who had escaped past the Berlin Wall, uh, and they came to our ghetto school, and the school was located in the Tenderloin, St. Boniface School on Golden
oh, I
Gate.
didn't say Boniface.
Yeah, in the Tenderloin. Right, right.
You went there. You went
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. For the first 6 years.
Wow, I like St. Boniface. It was
Yeah,
dark.
it was dark. It was dark, and it had the boys' playground was really cool. Well, no, actually, the girls' playground was really cool because it was underneath the entrance to the church,
Yeah.
and it had one of those push merry-go-rounds. You
Oh
push
yeah,
it
yeah.
real fast. And so the boys were allowed to play there after hours, after school.
Wow.
But
I
the girls had that yard. We had an
I
empty
went to
yard
see Boniface a lot. That's where my mom took us to go to
for
church. That
church.
yeah.
I,
So
I was
anyway,
an
right.
altered
So
I was an altered boy there,
oh well,
but
look,
but only for a few weeks because my mother finally understood that getting me up at 5:30 to do 6:30 mass was kind of
then you moved out.
well. When you were the new guy, that was your duty, and you did it solo. You had to do
Yeah,
both the gospel and the epistle side.
yeah. Well, I just know that uh, you know this is what happens when you grow up in San Francisco. You share these stories.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we ate at St. Anthony's dining room. We got the same
Oh, you
food.
got to eat there?
Our cafeteria was the other side of St. Anthony's kitchen.
Wow.
So
Did you
one
get?
side was our cafeteria, the other side was St. Anthony's kitchen. So we had the same food. They had powdered eggs. So the
Uh,
scrambled eggs did not really taste that good, because it was made out of powdered egg. And they overcooked their beans,
yeah.
you
Wait,
know,
so
and,
you ate like it was like homeless food.
pretty much,
Yeah.
mashed potatoes, the typical stuff.
Yeah.
We used to call it potato food. Potato meaning
Oh yeah, put the white.
white people food.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I went there. They
All right.
overcooked their asparagus. Even and I liked asparagus, but
Yeah.
they overcooked it, man. The thing, was like it was almost semi gelatinous when they were done with that sucker. But
Yeah.
anyway, so anyway, and when you're Asian, you know how to cook that stuff, right? You know how
Yeah.
to cook
Yeah.
long beans. So we know from home and from the restaurants how properly that stuff should be cooked. So
Yeah.
you know, my dad said, okay, you don't have to eat cafeteria food. We'll make you a bag lunch every day. At least I
Ah.
had something to trade with, you
Yeah.
know, because I got the good ham and cheese sandwiches and stuff like that. Turkey and cheese, and then the other guys would go, "Hey man, you want to trade?" And they had PBJs, right?
Yeah.
So I'd be
Oh,
trading for peanut butter and jelly, right?
no one wanted to trade with me. I had
What would you have?
I had
Bagoong,
no.
bagoong.
I had the Dobo.
What? Well, that's close.
We had
That's
adobo
close. What's
sandwiches.
that funny smell?
It's a adobo sandwich and on white bread, and no
Oh
one wanted
man,
to trade.
what's that funny smell?
I said, I want to trade for your salami, and
Yeah, right on,
it's a
right
different
on.
part of the pork.
When there was only like two brands of salami in San Francisco, right?
Oh yeah, there was
Yeah,
Gallo, right?
Gallo and Columbus.
Columbus,
Yeah,
was it? It was Gallo, not
yeah, it
Gallo.
was
Yeah,
Gallo. Gallo had salami.
Gallo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they had the wines too.
yeah. I remember
Gallo,
that.
and that was like all of the drunks would drink either Sauterne or there was another green grape that they liked. I can't remember what it was, but that's how I learned wines. Was the guys would leave bottles around
Oh,
in the front of our apartment
muscat,
building, you know? Yeah, yeah,
muscadel, something.
muscatel. That's
Muscatel.
it. That's it.
I don't know it from drinking it myself. I just know
No, no,
it's
we saw the bottles laying around, right? You know,
sweet
it's
wine. Sweet wine. All right,
anyway,
Dan.
were we ghetto or what? I mean,
Yeah,
damn, if you know St. Boniface, you're ghetto, you know.
I
That,
know. I was right. I mean, I'm telling you, in San Francisco, you take the 5 McAllister, you walk over to St. Boniface.
yeah, yeah. Five McAllister was a good ride though. Took you all
Yeah,
the way out to Playland.
yeah, that was a good. That was why. That's why
That
you
was a
took it.
good ride from downtown to Playland. Went all the way to the ferry building out to Playland. I mean, that's one of the longest rides in the city.
Yeah,
And it was electrified. It was kind of cool.
that was a fun one. That was a fun
Yeah,
one.
yeah, the end Judah was fun because it went through the long tunnel.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It smelled like ozone in there. Remember that?
Oh, I don't know that one, but I do know that. Yeah, at the end to catch the end, you had to live out in the avenues. If you didn't live out in the avenues, you avoided it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they had the two parallel lines. They had the Taravel
Oh, the L, yeah,
and
the
and
L.
and and the and Judah, and then they had the one that swung to past State, which was the K,
M.
the Ingleside, K Ingleside.
Oh, K
Yeah,
Ingleside.
yeah.
That's right, K Ingleside.
The M was the ocean, M ocean.
M Ocean.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
got to be old to remember this stuff, man. Boy, you really look young for knowing all this stuff. Well, the color of my hair or the lack of it,
yeah. No,
pigment,
pigment. I love the pigment. The
the
pigment.
pigment, it betrays me. Everybody thinks that I'm a cradle robber. They look at my wife and they say, "She's so young, and you're so goddamn old. How come?" And I say, "You know what? I'm 10 days older." And
Yeah.
they
I
look
know
at
you
me
do.
with disbelief.
Yeah.
They look at me with disbelief, and of course, she's all a giggle.
Yeah. Of
And
course. Of
they
course.
think I'm in my 40s. I said, Jesus.
So Dan, all right. So look, happy Veterans Day tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, we're thinking
We will.
about them.
We'll
A Memorial Day is good, but I think Veterans Day is also important.
you don't have. You don't. Oh man, what happened to my voice? Hold on. You don't have to die to be.
There it is. I like that. I like that. You know.
Memorial Day, you say, the dead ones. But
Yeah,
Veterans Day, yeah, we thank you for your service.
I have a long list that I send out for Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Because I was surrounded by my generation, which is all Vietnam.
Mm.
You know,
So, yeah. Well,
all
listen.
the all the World War II guys and the Korean guys,
Yeah.
they're all gone.
Oh boy. Yeah. Well, listen. Well, happy
Thank you for
Veterans.
having me on. It was a real blast.
Yeah. And we'll talk to you. We'll follow you
Yeah, check
and
out. Yeah, go back to the AALDEF poll and see if you can find a more current, because they said this is preliminary result.
they may not have put out the Texas results in the final. That's what I'm guessing.
Okay, because yeah, the Texas results. Wow, I mean, it
Because
looks really Republican. Not by much. I mean, but still, this does not look good for getting rid of Ted Cruz.
yeah, I don't know what the Republicans are going to do to get rid of Ted Cruz. I don't know if they want to.
No,
I
they can't. They can't afford to lose anybody. Just like we can't afford to lose anybody. We can't. We really can't afford to lose Manchin. Now we got to put a big emphasis on retaining places like
yeah,
Nevada and Ohio, and then we also have to try and fight for Florida. I mean, my God,
Florida.
you know.
Well, it would be nice to have Florida back in the fold.
Well, Rick Scott is very vulnerable. I think.
Oh yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So
Yes,
let's.
yes. And he goes both ways. He's.
Oh, really?
I think he was a Democrat once.
He's bisexual? What?
No, he
Oh,
was
oh no. Oh,
a
okay.
Democrat. He was a
Oh,
donkey
oh,
once.
oh, oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
now
he's more of a mule now.
yeah. So I don't know. All right, listen, Dan. Go with God, and
Vaya con Dios. It sounds more romantic,
I, I
Uh,
and we'll follow the news and we'll see what happens and check out Theo's book. It's an interesting book.
All right, all right. Yeah, I tried to find it, and you got to go to Smithsonian because it ain't listed on Amazon yet. But
Yeah, it's probably just on. It's published, but I think it might be one of those things where you have to be at the Smithsonian or something.
yeah, I'm just gonna call him and say autograph it, make a little statement on the inside cover, and then send me a copy.
Of
That's it.
course, that's what you
That's
do.
it. That's it. I mean, one of these times we ought to figure out when we're gonna go to DC and New York together. That would be fun.
That would be fun. Oh,
We,
speaking of which,
okay.
There Lies Love got canceled.
Wow.
The Marcos.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't make enough audience after a while, huh?
Well, it just needed to make such a big nut, as they say, which
Yeah.
I think it's almost suicidal. If you know that it's going to cost you, if you got to make up 700,000 to make payroll every week, uh, what are you doing to yourself, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I don't
You know
know.
what they ought to do is make a movie out of it and sell that.
They well, maybe they'll have. I'm
They
sure.
they could they it would work. I mean, I'm telling you right now, it would work. They would get even if only the Filipinos watched it.
Yeah.
If only half of the Filipinos watched it, and if it got on Netflix or something.
See, people don't think that way in showbiz. They got to go big or go home. It's really big or go home.
Well, that's
You know,
Broadway. That's Broadway for sure.
and
And it's really tragic. The fun thing is when people do off Broadway stuff,
mm,
and that's how you're like that's how it started, right? It started in
yeah,
Seattle.
yeah, Seattle. Then it went to the Public, which is in the East Village, right there by NYU. I just think that yeah, sometimes people are overly ambitious. They want it's the profit motive because if in the absence of the profit motive,
Unfortunately, that's Broadway, man.
then There Lies Love would have been happily moving along, but 700,000 a week was their nut. I mean, you're not going to get there.
Panico.
I think they got up to like a 500,000, and that's not enough. Something like that. I may have misread that report in Variety. Anyway, all right. So Dan,
Thank
thank
you.
thank
Thank
you very
you.
much, man.
And have a great weekend and we will figure out when we can brunch out or dinner out again.
Yeah. Okay. There
All
he
right.
goes, my
All right,
friend
man.
Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, Asian American Studies, Professor Emeritus, and my regular Friday guest, friend of Professor Theo Gonzalves, the author of the aforementioned Smithsonian Asian Pacific American 101 Objects, Art, Culture, History. It's a new book out, and it's really an eye opener in terms of Asian American history. Check it out wherever books are sold. It was published this week by the Smithsonian. And I will play an interview that I did with Theo. I did it this week. I will play it throughout Saturday and Sunday. And I think you'll find it enlightening. If you're a or Asian American Filipino history buff, or even if you're not, it's a great book, not a coffee table book, a real history book. All right, that's it for me, and have a good weekend. Listen to this show. I mean, we replay it on you can go to yahoo.com, Emil at Emil Amok1. Go to Twitter at Emil Amok. Go to Facebook at fb.com/emilguillermo.media. That's where you'll find this. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, and we just do a little chat. Just chat. It's our secret podcast. I don't put it on the podcast things. I don't know why. I'm lazy, okay? That can't be it might be. One day I will. But as of now, this is where you'll find it, right here. So catch it here, live, and then catch it in all those other places on replay. We end our segments with a little meditation. I mean, you don't have to formally meditate. Look, I was kicked out of meditation school, so I'm a kind of rebel. I just be quiet. Just listen. See what's around you. Hear what's around you. Feel what's in your body. And then I like a little metta, METTA, the loving kindness meditation. It goes like this. You say, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal Kita.